we're going to be walking through how you can install Airflow-2.x onto your computer. And in this instance, I have a Windows operating system and I'm going to be running Docker, but the same process will apply to a Mac or a Linux machine as well. And the other thing I want to make note of with Airflow-2.x is one of the really great things about it relative to version 1 is that the actual Airflow committee has an official in production version of the YAML file, the config file for your actual Docker installation. And so it makes creating your environment much easier, and you know that you're following best practices. So Airflow version 2.x is a really great and much easier way to get started with Airflow than it was on 1.x. And so the very first thing you're going to do is I'm in my user directory on my Windows machine. Same thing would apply to if you were doing this on a Mac or Ubuntu. I'm just going to create a folder in here called Airflow test. And within this folder, I'm going to open up my terminal. And within this terminal, I'm going to run a curl command, and this comes right off of Docker's or Airflow's documentation. So just paste that in, and you can see here that after we've done this, if we check the directory contents, there's now this docker compose.yaml file, and so this was downloaded directly from Apache Airflow's website. So it makes the process very simple for us. And if you wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive, you can look into this YAML file. You can change things like the environment variables that Docker or Airflow is using inside of their Docker container, and which port binding it's going to and all that stuff. But in our case, we're going to leave it as is just because, this is going to be a quick setup guide, and you guys can dig into that later. But the other thing you're going to need to do is inside of the directory where you've created or downloaded that YAML file, you're also going to want to make new directories for the following. So you're going to need a folder for your dags, you're going to need an additional folder for your plugins, and finally you'll need a folder for the logs. And so once you've done all that, the other thing that is recommended is to persist the environment variables in a .env file if you're using this on a Mac or Windows machine. And the way you do this is through this command that I'll just paste in, and I'll provide a link to all the commands I'm executing in the actual description of this video. And if we check the dir contents again, you can see that we've now got this little .env file containing the actual environment variable that we want to persist. And once we see this, the very next thing we're going to be doing is running the following. And I'm going to get errors because I've already done this. It'll tell me that I've already got port bindings, but in your case, you won't if this is a new install. So the next command you're going to be running is docker compose up airflow-init. And when you run this command, you're going to see how this is a one-time only when you're first installing this actual Airflow test. I'm getting this error because it's already bounded that port, but on your instance, this should go through successfully. It may take a few minutes, and then after you've run that one command, the next command you would run to actually start your instance is docker compose up. And once you do this, I'm again going to get errors because I'm already running a Docker instance, but in your case, this would go through a series of commands and it should go without issue. And now, if you get past those two commands, you can run the following, docker ps, and you should see all of the different Airflow Docker containers running. And you can see that right now it's on port 8080, and we can see that all of our containers have a healthy status, which is great. One thing that I did encounter when I was installing this on my Windows machine is I was getting an error message, or when I tried to actually go to port 8080, it was telling me it wasn't responsive, and so that was a little bit concerning. But in my case, so if port 8080 isn't responsive, it could be due to the fact that you aren't running Docker desktop in the background. So what you would want to do in this case is just rerun or make sure Docker desktop is running, and then rerun docker ps, confirm that all of your Docker containers have that healthy status, and then try accessing port 8080 again. The other thing you're going to note is that if you haven't changed anything in that YAML file, there is a default username and password to the Airflow v2 instance that was just created. And the username and password are both Airflow, all lowercase, no space. And so once you've done all that, you guys should be up and running with your new Airflow version 2 environment. So you can start playing around with creating some new dags, and hope this video was helpful. Thank you all for watching, and take care.